My recommendation would be just start small, start talking to people, start gaining some information and some insights and building your network. And from there, things will slowly start to snowball.
Hello, welcome. It's Mark Jackson, and I'm the host of the New HR. And today we have Kelly Emery, the founder of Troop, on the podcast. Welcome, Kelly.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. So let's dive right in. I guess if you could just share a few things about your background and what's brought you to where we are today, or you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the founder and CEO of a social enterprise called Troop. And what we do is we help small to mid-sized businesses run social impact programs. We do it in a pretty cool way where we engage all of their employees. So every month when a business signs up, they commit to fulfilling a certain amount of local, tangible needs in their community. And we send out a curated list of a few of those needs to all of their employees. So staff get the opportunity to read about the needs in their local community, the organizations that submitted those needs, and then they get to vote on the need that they want their business to fulfill most that month. So the cause that kind of resonates most with them. In the middle of the month, we close the voting, we process fulfillment. So that's when we're reaching out to our charity partners saying, hey, we fulfilled a local need for you. And then with the support of those charity partners, by the end of the month, we're closing up the feedback loop so that everybody can really see and feel how their business showed up for the local community. And then we start all over again next month.
That's great. Who would you say is on the whole is using the service, and who's getting the most value?
Yeah, so we mainly target small to mid-sized businesses. So we're looking at organizations anywhere between 250 employees all the way up to 1,000 employees. But the sweet spot really does tend to be organizations that have about 150 to 250 staff.
Okay, great. And I did notice, I just saw the other day that you've launched kind of an exciting new beta. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we originally kind of kick-started with this solution that helps businesses fulfill tangible needs in their local community. But what we identified and recognized was that organizations were also struggling to kind of bring their teams together in order to volunteer for local charitable organizations. And do it in a way that really also adds value to the charity. So when it comes to volunteering, there tends to be a real gap when it comes to value, right? Particularly corporate volunteering, right? So a lot of the times, small local charities in particular, don't really value much the, having 30 to 50 employees for 2 to 3 hours, right? They need different types of support. So we're really looking at building out a solution that closes that value gap so that then the charity partners can also, really benefit from the volunteer skills and services of these employees, as well as the organizations benefiting from the volunteering experiences from a team building perspective.
Great. And is there a special link to sign up for that beta, or can somebody just find that through your website? We'll include all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our site, and then you can very easily sign up for a demo. We can walk you through how it all works and get you signed up for that. Right now, our beta is available actually just in the GTA, though. We're looking to expand beyond that. So the GTA, Toronto, Greater Toronto area, and we would be looking to expand within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay. So looking at your CV, you obviously have a substantial experience working in executive roles for successful companies. I'd like to know the first things you do when starting a new company. For example, as a founder and CEO of Troop, what were the first things that you worked on?
Yeah, and I might maybe just kind of go back a little bit as well and talk a little bit about that kind of experience. So this sector in this space, the charitable space, is pretty relatively new to me. My experience really tends to be in fintech and insurtech. That's where I started my career, and in entrepreneurship, of course. So co-founded a company with my partner called ratesupermarket.ca. It was a marketplace for personal finance products. We built that company over the course of about 5 years, and then it was acquired by a competitor. I then stayed on with that competitor and was a part of their executive team when they were ultimately acquired by a pension fund. And that was around 2019. And it was really the catalyst for me to take a bit of a step back and say, okay, what do I want the next chapter of my life to look like? At that time, the idea of tech for good and how you can leverage technology to help solve more important and meaningful problems in the world was what really kind of resonated with me. And so that was I knew I wanted to start another business, and that was the sandbox that I knew I wanted to play in. So then, comes the question of, well, what does that look like, right? Where do you start? Where do you begin? And so with Troop, it was very much starting with a lot of research, understanding the sector, understanding the space, understanding the challenges and the problems in that space, and where I could leverage my unique skill set in order to play a part in a solution. So that looked like a whole bunch of volunteering at charities, a whole bunch of building my network in the space, a whole bunch of looking at the sector from a macro landscape perspective. Once I had identified, the challenge and the problem that really kind of jumped out at me, and that was the decline in charitable engagement, then the question became, how might I put a dent in that, right? And, I was a really strong believer at that time that any decline in the charitable engagement, when I say decline in charitable engagement, I mean the decline in the number of donors, people who are actively donating to local charities and contributing funds, has been declining quite consistently. So then the question became, what's behind this decline, right? I am a very strong believer in the fact that the decline, isn't a representation of people being less compassionate or less generous. I think that people are hugely compassionate and generous and they want to help. I just think that people are busy, right? They need new and unique ways of getting involved and discovering how they can get involved. So that's where I started. I started with that problem. I started with the potential solution of, well, you know what? If I could tell you exactly where your generosity is needed in your own backyard, like, could I get you involved and could I get you acting? So, and then from there, once you've got that problem identified and once you've got a potential solution, it becomes, okay, well, what's the MVP, the minimum viable product that you can build in order to start validating that, right? That hypothesis. So for me, what we did was we actually built a solution that, and when I say built, I mean, what we did was we signed up, we had a landing page. We signed up about 700 neighbors in my local community to receive a weekly text message on a Sunday night. So I would send out a text on Sunday night and say, hey, local women's shelter needs bed sheets. Can we close it by Friday? And then we ended up fulfilling a lot of these tangible needs for local charities. And we had really high engagement metrics that we were seeing and participation from the, neighbors that were signing up to receive this weekly text message. So we kind of validated there was something there. In order to go a little bit deeper, then it became, okay, how do we talk to these people? I called them my super troopers. So I was reaching out to them. I was going out for lunches. I was going out for coffees and saying to them, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What value are you getting? Yeah. And just in order to try to get that additional insight into exactly, how we were solving the problem. And like I said, the value that we were delivering. And so that's when we started to hear things like, I'm feeling really connected to my community. This isn't charity. This is actually just being a good neighbor, and this is what you're supposed to do. And wouldn't it be cool if I could take what I'm doing with Troop today and bring it into my company and do it with my team? And so that's when we thought, oh, okay, let's maybe look into that, because what we were struggling with was, because once you have that problem, once you have that potential solution, how are you generating enough value in order to be able to build a business model, a viable business model around that, right? And so that was the area of struggle when we were talking to neighbors. So then in looking at the gaps in the market for small to mid-sized businesses and engaging their employees in these types of initiatives, we certainly identified that there was a lot more opportunity and potential value that we could deliver in terms of supporting businesses in that way.
Wow, that's a lot of great information. In terms of the, I definitely, that resonates with me, connecting with your community. So many people don't even know where to start, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. I mean, and it is, it's starting small, right? I think that people can oftentimes, feel a little bit overwhelmed when they're trying to embark on something new. And my recommendation would be just start small, start talking to people, start gaining some information and some insights and building your network. And from there, things will slowly start to snowball.
I like the list capability too. I'm a list guy. So if, you want to be more engaged in the community, like, where do you start? You have to start Googling stuff like that, but you get a list of everything that's connected to us or local. And I think that's just fabulous.
Yeah.
How would you say social impact initiatives are different today than they were 5 years ago, even 3 years ago? So much has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the subject of corporate social responsibility and ESG, environmental and social governance, has certainly evolved a lot over the past 5 to 10 years. So if we look at ESG, environmental and social governance, I mean, just back in 2011, of the S&P 500 companies, only 20% of them were reporting on their ESG practices. If you fast forward 9 years to 2020, we now see that 90% of those S&P 500 companies are reporting on these metrics. So certainly one of the shifts that we've definitely seen is in larger organizations identifying that this is an important way to operate, right? And changing operations in order to look at more than just the bottom line, right? And how they are impacting society in a wider way. Some of the other shifts that I believe that we've seen as well is in, going beyond just engaging in these types of initiatives for the purpose of brand and marketing. I think that we've seen some challenges around, organizations being called out for greenwashing or social washing, at a time when, businesses can be judged quite critically in terms of whether or not they're acting authentically in these spaces, right? So I think that we've seen a push for organizations to think more strategically and to really incorporate some of these strategies into the core of what they do, and for it to become a part of their value system, and not just looking at how they can share their impact either socially or environmentally through marketing channels, but looking deeper across the entire organization on, at their vendor procurement processes, at, how they're supporting their employees, at their supply channel. So a wide variety of how the organization in its entirety is impacting society. And I think that what we're seeing is the organizations who are going to that level and doing that, that they're seeing some of the benefits that really kind of come from these types of wholeheartedly engaging in these types of initiatives and activities.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about that change from 20% to 90%, and a lot of those organizations, the larger organizations, are the first thing they do is they put that type of mission in their shareholder report, and then I'm sure you see it. I certainly see it on the marketing side. There's a disconnect between what's on the shareholder report and what's actually happening within the organization itself. Even though a lot of the larger organizations have they have resources, they have teams, they have people in place to put it in effect. What I love about Troop is the fact that you're helping small, medium size companies that don't necessarily have structure or resources allocated and in place to take care of some of these initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So, let's talk a little bit about, the shift maybe for those small to mid-sized businesses. And certainly I think that what we're still seeing, unfortunately, today is a lot of those organizations continue to sit on the sidelines or do very little to get involved in their local community. And I think that a part of that is, around fear of getting it wrong, fear of being kind of called out for not doing it in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
There are other challenges around, just even the basics of, these organizations asking themselves questions like, what charity should we pick? What cause should we be supporting? How do we get employees involved? Like, whose job is this? Who's actually responsible in the organization for doing this? And that, one of the changes that I've certainly seen in that space is the openness and the willingness to just get started, and to just do it in a way where it's less of a kind of top-down approach, where the organization is saying, hey guys, listen, we're going to support this cause, or we're going to support this charity, and I want everybody to get really excited about it and involved. Instead of that approach, they're actually going about it, with the help of Troop, in a way where all of their employees can get their voices heard. So all of their employees get the opportunity to be able to share and ultimately vote for the cause in the organization that really truly resonates with them.
So, okay, that's great. What is step number one? So you have an HR manager that hears this, doesn't necessarily want to get it wrong, wants to proceed with implementing some social impact initiatives. What is step one? What would you recommend? Do you have like an outline, best practices, business case on your website, or where do we go?
Yeah, so we've got a white paper that you can download that really talks a lot about this, how to get started. First and foremost, I think that what needs to be done is there needs to be buy-in at the senior level. So if you are the HR leader, you want to make sure that you've presented a compelling case around the business reasons and the return on investment for getting started down this path. And there are really quite significant studies out there that will tell you just how impactful these types of initiatives can be when it comes to, attracting quality talent, retaining that talent, job performance, innovation. So first and foremost, I think what you want to do is to be able to present to your leadership team why this is an important and compelling path that you want to go down, and how the business needs to really kind of focus on this. Once you have buy-in from the leadership team for these types of initiatives, you're also going to need buy-in from your employees as well. So a lot of organizations will pull together a social committee or an impact committee. And those impact committees play a really kind of vital role in making sure that numerous voices from within the organization can be heard when they're evaluating the different ways to kind of get started down this path.
Okay. Do you see a particular trend in sticking points in terms of getting, approval from executives, or getting I can't imagine not seeing buy-in from the employees.
Yeah. So in terms of the executives, it just becomes a question of, whose job is this? How easy is this going to be to implement? How are we going to manage it? Right. And that was really one of the main challenges that Troop identified when we were talking to some of these organizations. And so as our service has evolved, the key feature that we are this full service program that as soon as you sign up, like, we're actually responsible for taking over in terms of communications to your employees, making sure that your employees are engaged, helping you to discover the different opportunities in your local community, and then closing that feedback loop and giving you the reporting that you need.
Geographically, do you have any constraints in terms of?
Yeah, so right now we do operate across Canada. So predominantly we are in Ontario, Alberta, BC. We just launched in Nova Scotia, and we're about to launch next month in Quebec. But, you can imagine we're a marketplace. So we've got loads of charity partners that are telling us about their needs, and then we need to sign up those businesses in order to be able to fulfill those needs. So once we have a business signed up in a new area, to be able to go out and onboard more charity partners and more needs, we've got a scalable process built out in order to be able to do that.
Okay, that's great. Small companies may want to contribute to helping others, but their budget is non-existent instead of insufficient or small. Are there any initiatives that you recommend for companies that have, small/no budget?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that it's important to recognize that even a small budget can go a long way, right? Particularly, through Troop, when we're fulfilling tangible needs. Some of the needs that we've got on our site are, $200, $350, of that value, but
Sure.
can create a huge impact in somebody's life and for a charitable organization. So first and foremost, I would say that. Um, but then there are loads of opportunities and loads of ways that you can get involved with no budget. And I think that volunteering is probably the first thing that an organization should get started with. So
Okay.
either allocating a certain amount of time that you allow employees to be able to support charities that are important to them. And coming together in small teams and groups in order to be able to support organizations through a volunteer initiative, I think is a really great way to get started and to start the process of integrating some of those core values into the organization.
So have you started working with any companies that would have been on the really small side, and just through adoption and change at the company through executives, employees, you've seen them really go through a crawl, walk, run type of a process where the program now is more structured and larger?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why we, have evolved into supporting organizations with their volunteer initiatives as well. When I first started Troop, I very much viewed it as a tool and a solution to help businesses go from 0 to 1. It was like the on ramp to getting started down this social impact path. And as we've evolved with organizations, we've helped to take them from, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, and as we will continue on our journey, we expect to be able to support them in becoming fully purpose-driven organizations.
That's great. You mentioned something earlier that just kind of stuck and has been rattling around in my head. It's talent acquisition, which is such a big thing with HR professionals, always keeping that pipeline filled. Can you really talk just a little bit more about how having this type of engagement at an organization is a strong tool for people for recruiting new talent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the most recent stat is that nearly 80% of Canadians want to work for, and it's also just as high for Americans, want to work for a company with a strong corporate social responsibility program. I mean, employees are looking for so much more than just a paycheck these days.
Mhm.
And certainly when it comes to, the amount of time that they're spending at these organizations and, how much of their life they're dedicating to these organizations, they're looking for more in return, and they're looking for purpose, and they're looking for meaning, and organizations that can connect with potential employees on that level, and show that there is, alignment in terms of values there, and can be really beneficial.
Is there any particular industry or type of company that is more appropriate to adding social activities to their initiatives, or are tech companies a good fit? Is there any specifics?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, tech companies are a great fit. We've seen great interest from financial services, insurance companies, but also, property development, also manufacturing, construction. So I really believe that operating in this way, it's sector agnostic. I think that all businesses, because all employees, and all consumers really want organizations to operate for more than just their bottom line.
Okay, that's great. Um, I did want to just quickly note, we had planned to record this still in 2023. We're now in 2024. And I did want to congratulate you. I did notice that, you were awarded Woman of the Year in 2023 in the Canadian tech industry by DMZ. And if you could just share a little bit about that, like what contributes to this award, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an accolade that I'm very proud of. The DMZ is a fabulous community that I'm a part of. And I think that they're doing some great work supporting female founders because for female founders, it is an extra challenge in terms of being able to grow and scale our businesses based on the lack of funding that is available through the investor community. And in particular, I think that what they're doing is identifying women who are really trying to kind of go beyond some of those barriers, and in particular, building solutions and businesses that will benefit the wider community. So I'm quite proud of that recognition. Thank you.
So just in kind of wrapping up, what are your predictions for the future of HR or your space in HR 5 to 10 years? Seems like such a long time. 2 to 5 years. What are the changes in 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's certainly been a big challenge for HR leaders over the past, 3 to 5 years, right? The pandemic was a huge upset. And now we operate in an environment where a lot of organizations are still hybrid, so they've got employees that are working, from home and maybe come into the office every once in a while. I've heard from pretty much all of the businesses that I'm working with that there is a struggle in terms of being able to get the employees back into the office and to try to identify different ways to engage those employees to really build strong community and strong networks, right? So I believe that that's going to continue to be a challenge moving forward into the future. And I think that what organizations are going to be doing is looking beyond, maybe some of the traditional solutions of Friday beer cart, pizza on Thursdays, right? And they're really going to try to look deeper into ways in which they can connect with their employees and facilitate connections between their employees. And I think that that's something that, I'm certainly really excited about. And I think that the opportunity to do that through community giving and supporting local charities is huge. And really looking forward to being able to support more businesses in that way.
That's great. Where do you land on the whole back to office thing? We've seen such a transition in the past 18 months in terms of, remote workers, and, some companies have gone hardcore in terms of carrot and stick, in terms of you're going to be fired if you don't show up, famously Tesla. But where do you kind of land in terms of hybrid or in office or at home?
I think the community is huge. No surprise. I'm a big believer in that. And so I think that, for workers, that we will start to realize over the coming years just how much we miss the community of the office space. And in particular, for young workers, I mean, I can't imagine getting started on my, career path and just doing it from my living room or from my bedroom. Like, that sounds awful, right? And so I think it's really, really important, in particular for young workers, to come back into the office. And if you've got young workers coming back into the office, I mean, for mentorship and for growth and development, it's really important for them to, be connected to and be around, the leaders in the organization as well, right? So I think that what we are going to see and what we're going to recognize over the coming years is how much we miss it and and the benefits of going back into the office. And I think that what we'll see is a slow return. That's
great. Thanks for sharing that. So where can people learn more about you and Troop and get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is hitroop.com. So it's hitroop.com. And we are quite active on LinkedIn as well. So you can always connect with me on LinkedIn and also our Instagram account as well.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Kelly. It was great having you on.
Fabulous. Thanks. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was good chatting with you.